Hello, today I'll be talking about The Beast of Buckingham Palace. So, this book is about a young prince called Alfred, and this book is set way into the future. So, it's 2120, and as you probably all know, there's a lot of poverty going on, and disaster lurks around in London. And this poor prince has to live in an environment which is hostile, and he can't leave the palace, and he's stuck in the palace walls and constantly being run after by maids and matrons and all the people and staff that work in the Buckingham Palace. So I'm going to read a bit of the extract. Actually, I'll read the blurb first. So, Britain, the future. The year is 2120. Prince Alfred, a sickly boy of 12, has never known life outside Buckingham Palace. Evil forces are at work, and he wants to do battle with the king of the beasts, the Griffin. Illustrated by Tony Ross, Dahl finally has a worthy successor, the Telegraph. London is in ruins. The people are hungry, and darkness has fallen across the land. Prince Alfred, a poorly and bookish child, has never left the safety of Buckingham Palace, but now there's a strange goings on in the inside of the palace walls, and Alfred's life is about to change forever. In the dead of night, something terrible stalks the corridors when Alfred's beloved mother, the Queen, is dragged off to the Tower of London. The boy must summon up his courage to embark an epic quest to save her and the entire world. Ooh, it's quite interesting this. So, we're going to read a bit of the extract. So, a little illustration there, quite interesting to look at. So, this book is full of illustrations, and I quite enjoy that. So, as you can probably see, there is Prince Alfred, the king, and Alfred's mom, the queen. There's many characters in the book. There's also the Lord Protector, Nan, the old queen, so the queen's mother, his grandma, and Mite, a little homeless girl there. See there. That's quite interesting. Yeah. There's many other friends of the old queen as well. They're quite old themselves. So bring some humour to the book, I guess. The royal guards, as you can see, they look completely different to what we see now. They're skull faces and enormous guns. And then there's the executioner, so nothing different there. The Octobot, an interesting robot there that does all the household chores in the Buckingham Palace. He looks quite advanced. Ooh, and the all-seeing eye, so I guess that sort of sees everything. Quite interesting. Right, let's start. And the map of London. Quite interesting to look at. Alright, let's start. Prologue. The Griffin is the king of beasts. It is half eagle, the king of the bird, and half lion, the king of the animals. The head and the wings are those of an eagle, while the body and back legs are those of a lion. For centuries the beast has been through us as stuff of legend, though as the stuff of legend. Early civilizations worshipped the griffin. It can be found in stories from both ancient Egypt and ancient Greece. In medieval times, this half-eagle, half-lion became a symbol of godlike power, the power over life and death, the power to create or destroy the universe, infinite power for all eternity. The sight of a griffin would inspire terror to the hearts of all men. That is why the beasts were used as symbols through the centuries by kings and queens. Griffins can be seen on coats of arms, flags, and shields. The message was simple: kneel or you will suffer a terrible fate at the claws of the beast. It looks a little like a dinosaur, those terrifying creatures that stalked the earth millions of years ago. However, Unlike dinosaurs, no one has ever found the skeleton of one, but that doesn't mean that the griffin never lived, or one day might not live again. Part 1. The Coming of the Beast. Chapter 1. Dark. It was noon, and the sky was black. There had been darkness over the kingdom over half a century. For many years before, the people of the earth had not taken care of their home. They had burnt down all the forest, reducing every last tree to ash. They had bumped the rivers, lakes, and seas full of waste, killing the fish. They had dug deeper and deeper under the ground of oil until the plant was hollow to its core. Eventually, the earth took its revenge. The ice caps of the Arctic and Antarctica melted. The floods were so mighty that whole countries became submerged underwater. Violent earthquakes shook the entire city around them. All that was left behind was piles and piles of rubble. Volcanoes erupted, bumping billions of tons of ash into the air. Without the sunlight, the crops withered and died. Nothing could grow. The kingdom was plunged into eternal winter. It was the only world Alfred knew. He was already 12 years old, but had never ever seen sunlight. Often he dreamed how it must have been to feel the sun on your face, or run through a field of tall grass, or swim in the sunlit sea. But it was just that, a dream. The boy was seeing pictures of suns in books, marveled at it, a perfect circle of gold. Now the moon and stars had become invisible too. Alfred would spend hours and hours and hours imagining how the night sky must have looked, with 1,000 little lights twinkling through the blackness. He was one of those children who liked nothing more than being alone with his imagination. In truth, he had a little choice. Having been sickly his whole life, soon after he was born, he became ill. As a baby, Alfred had not been expected to survive, but survive he did. Just. The child was as pale as snow and as thin as dust. He wore thick glasses to aid his poor eyesight. Often Alfred was so weak he had to stay in bed all day. Thank goodness all around his bed were piles and piles of books. Books, books, and more books. Books about animals, books about space, books about trees, books about dinosaurs, books about books. Books about history were his absolute favorite. The trouble was that there was a strict curfew in the building where Alfred lived. Night was the most dangerous time. That was when there was most chance of an attack from the outside. Light had to be out at 8 o'clock sharp, by order of the king. Anyone caught with lights or would be severely punished. Punishments were brutal in the kingdom. Those in power had turned to medieval forms of torture: the thumbscrew, the iron maiden, the breaking wheel, the pillory, the rack, the scowled bride, the rat dungeon, the head crusher, the iron chair. Despite the strict rules, the boy loved his books to the much that he would carry on reading by candlelight under his bed covers. The night our story begins. Alfred was just doing that. He was reading a weighty leather-bound book about kings and queens of Britain through the ages. The first known was Alfred the Great. He had become ruler an impossibly long time ago, in 871. Then the boy was named after the first king, but that was hard to believe. Anybody would ever describe this Alfred as great. He felt anything but, as a boy, with devouring the story of the beheading of King Charles I in 1649. A deafening sound rocked the room. Kaboom! Alfred dropped his book. Thud! And his candle. He very nearly set the covers alight. Woof! Smothering the flames and blowing the candles out. Whoosh! He pulled over his bed covers. Whip! A huge explosion outside has illuminated the boy's bedroom with glowing red, orange, and yellow light. Alfred slid out of bed, using all his strength, limped over the huge bay window. Just those few steps left him painfully out of breath. Okay, I'm gonna just stop there. Bye.